Hello. The 1.0.33 update just happened, so Thalia is now in game. We can go ahead and take a look at our skills. These skills are interesting. I'm going to go ahead and go into them in more depth. But first, I just want to point out that this is 2 hours after the update, so I spent that time mostly chatting in VC and in text channels, just kind of debating what is best with these new heroes. And we are also going to be taking a look at the new war pet, and I'll just show that quickly in case you're interested here at the start. If you go ahead and take a look at the war pet in here with your codex, you can scroll down and you can see that you have 4 different stats that get buffed when you level up the star level of your hero, which is kind of crazy. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get into this later. I'm going to compare it to the Shadow Manticore and the Sand Lizard, the Sapphire Faedrake, and the Shadow Faedrake. But for now, we're going to go ahead and talk about Thalia, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that. And so here is Thalia. She is a magic rally and support hero, and these are her skills. Her first skill, Active Rage skill, costs 700 rage, as we're going to touch on this later, has a very far attack range, deals magic damage to the target legion, damage factor 700, and gains Rampage, damage dealt plus X% for 5 seconds. So at max level, this is 1600 damage factor, which is kind of mental, and it lasts and it's a 15% damage buff, for 5 seconds. So this is really big. Basically, Thalia, you have to max her first skill like with most commanders, but you get so much value with maxing this first skill, it's kind of crazy. So, and then the second skill is Good Tidings. When dealing hero skill damage, Legion gains Keen and Shelter, attack and defense, plus X% for 3 seconds. It goes from 10% up to 25%. And now for the third skill, we have Blessings of Life. Magic Legions led by this hero deal 20% more hero skill damage and mitigate 20% of the enemy's attack. So this is an interesting skill. It's a 12% stat difference or 24% stat difference from level 1 to level 5. So this isn't like as crazy as some of the other skills. For example, this skill on Thundelyn, which we're going to cover later, which changed. This is a 42% 44% actually stat difference. So we're not going too crazy over here with the 30%. Over here with the 24%, but it's still something. And then luckily, the fifth skill is the one that is for rallying. When launching a rally, Legion gains 10% magic attack, and when hit by a normal attack, has a 20% chance to take 5% less normal attack damage, maximum 15% for 5 seconds. So this skill, in theory, is good, but it's not enough. I think that the maximum needs to be like 50%, and the normal attack chance for triggering has to be like 40%. Because the way that this works right now is that, okay, so after maybe like 20 attacks, you're going to have 3 stacks, or maybe like 30 attacks, and maybe you have a 100%, well, you would have a 100% uptime on this if you're getting swarmed, but it's only a maximum of 15% damage reduction, which is nowhere near enough, and it's a 10% stat buff, so they're trying something to make the Mage Rally work, but this is still going to be a glass cannon for sure. What's crazy though is the 1600 damage factor for the primary skill. Again, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. And then here in the 5th slot, we have Protector's Hymn, which is a passive skill. While in battle, Legion has a 10% chance to gain a shield factor of 150 for 5 seconds. So you have a 10% chance to gain that shield, and it lasts for 5 seconds. It's not a very big shield. If we compare this to the shield size on Thea, shield factor 1000, nah, I mean 150 shield factor, I don't know if that's much to scoff at. Doesn't Eliana have a shield as well? Yeah, Eliana gives 500 shield factor, so a third as much shield factor as an epic hero on a legendary hero's awakening skill. Maybe this is supposed to be 1500. It's also a 10% chance, and it lasts for 5 seconds, so it's not 100% uptime. It's probably like roughly 50% uptime. So this is pretty bad for an awakening skill. So my verdict on Thalia is that you have a couple of different ways that you can approach this. Of course, if you're a Kraken, you're going to awaken the hero. If you're low spend, you probably 5-1-1 her, and then maybe try to 5-1-5. And then the other option is to 5-5-5. And the reason why I'm saying this is that the stat buff for this here is when you do hero skill damage. Now, we do have one thing that we need to talk about for this, which is that the active skill has a 700 rage cost. So, depending on how active skills work, if something has a low rage cost and something has a higher rage cost, it'll be interesting to see if the deputy skill is based on the rage of the primary, based on the rage of the hero with the least rage cost, or however that works. If you're able to skill cycle 2 heroes with 700 rage factor, then this skill is actually probably pretty good, because 700 rage factor would probably take you like 6.5-7 seconds on average, so you'd be close to 50% uptime on this. So you would be getting about, on average, a 15% stat buff, which, I mean, maybe it's actually not that good. Now that I'm thinking about it more just in my head, at least you want to max the first skill, and yeah, probably the third skill is better than the second skill. I think a lot of people have misread this skill, or her kit in general, to be better than it is. It's a bit of an interesting hero. You can definitely make some mistakes here on these 2 heroes, both of them really, if you're not too careful. So what we are going to need to do, hopefully there is a content creator in G1 that can do this, or at least someone that can like screen share and run a bunch of tests. What we need to figure out is how the rage cost works for 2 different heroes with different rage cost. For example, Thalia has a 700 rage cost, Thundelyn has a 1000 rage cost. If I pair them together, do I cast both my skills every 1000 or every 700? We'll have to wait and see. So my initial rating, I guess, of Thalia, if I had a tier list for heroes that was like S tier, A tier, B tier, etc., for anyone other than a Kraken, probably like high B tier, because like this is a nuke, right? 1600 damage factor is wild, but like that's okay, but her other skills aren't that impressive, right? And her awakening sucks. So of course you need her if you're going to try mage rallying, but for the average player, I think maybe just maxing her first skill is enough. And then yeah, so we have Thalia here, which maybe you 5-1-1, you 5-1-5, or you 5-5-5-1. You probably don't awaken her unless you're a Kraken. But what we do have is Thundelyn, and oh boy, Thundelyn. So the first skill, as we talked about in the last video, this probably needs to be rewritten so that it has like a 6-second duration or something like that, because right now it reads in a way that it would just exponentially ramp up, which doesn't make any sense. But one thing that did happen, which we need to talk about, is that the third skill changed from an attack bonus, changed from a damage bonus to an attack bonus, which makes sense, because a 30% damage bonus basically acts as like a, I don't know why I'm coming out here, but a 30% damage bonus basically acts as a 80% attack bonus. So this makes a lot more sense, and again, that was just a translation error. After some more thought on this hero too, I think the kit isn't that bad overall, as long as the primary skill does 6 seconds of duration. If this triggers 3 times, I think it's good. We're also going to have to see how it actually works. Some people think that it's going to work similar to the Ice Lizard, which shoots out like a ball when you are using it or when you're attacking one, which is really annoying because you have to actually target it in order to kill it, or it just keeps doing damage basically. So it'll be interesting to see if that's like how the active skill works, but it probably won't. We're just gonna have to wait until the hero's actually in the game because the description's unclear. But I think for Thundelyn, the consensus is probably you just awaken her. Depending on how many universal tokens that you have, that'll probably dictate what your investment's going to be like. So for me, I have 350 G3s. I'm going to have a bit above 400 by the time the update comes out. And I'm also going to be 100 spinning the wheel. So I think for me, I'm probably not going to touch my non-season specific tokens. And I think I'm going to save these for like G4 archers maybe, or maybe even G4 mages. Probably just G4 archers though, if I'm able to get them. I don't know. I have to think about this more. But I don't know. We just have to see like how good Thalia's second and third skills are. Because right now we're just looking at it on paper, right? And once it comes off the paper and into the game, it's possible that they could actually be a lot better. Either way, I don't think that these heroes are terrible. They're definitely better than Bertohar, at least I think. And we'll have to wait and see how they actually work when they come in game. And before we go into the last like big section of this video, I want to quickly just take a look at this Great Height skin, because this is mental. Just look at this animation. It's absolutely amazing. 10% marksman attack. This thing is probably going to be super competitive. I hope you're looking forward to my video on this Great Heights series, where I'm going to be taking all of these scores from every kingdom in the game, putting them into a spreadsheet and ranking them. Look at that explosion there. That was really nice. But yeah, that a lot of people are going to want this skin. It's definitely the best skin in the game. Hands down. None of the other ones even come close to comparing. Maybe this one, you can kind of make an argument, but I don't think so with how cool this like explosion thing that it sometimes does is here. So now we are going to go ahead into the War Pet segment of this video. And yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that. So now we are going to talk about War Pets. And instead of going into my pet sanctuary to take a look at the War Pets, or instead of going into the codex, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hop over into a paint window and we'll talk about it there. So here are the talent skills for the Serraphic Faedrake, the Shadow Manticore, the Shadow Faedrake, the Sapphire Faedrake, and the Sand Lizard. What we're going to be going ahead and doing here is comparing their stats. So what we want to look at is the upgrade preview here. Since this tends to be the most important part on a pet, you can see the base stats up here for the level 1, or you can read their description. However, that's only really important for the Shadow Faedrake, and we'll get into that a bit later. So this new pet at 3 stars is doing 95 damage, 160 healing, and it has this really interesting amplifying factor here for how many stacks that you get. And the way that you get an stack is for doing a buff or debuff. And in case you are wondering what an innate skill means, it's explained here. The 5 fixed skills that every hero starts out with, these do not include their talents. So it's your 4 main skills and your awakening skill. Any buffs or debuffs that you get from those skills would count and give you a stack. And you want to get as many stacks as possible in between rage skill cycles. So for example, if you are using Thundelen and Thalia in the open field, Thundelen's first skill will always give you 2 buffs or debuffs before your pet skill goes off, and Thalia will always give you 3 buffs, 1 from her primary skill and 2 from her secondary skill. So you are guaranteed 5 buffs every time, assuming you have Thalia at least at level 2 or 2 stars. So you want to at least have the spirit capacity to be able to handle 5 stacks, and you also have the 30% chance every turn to gain an additional stack from Thundelyn. In theory, with maximum spirit, 320 spirit, and a 3-star skill, you would be able to catch this maybe like 20% of the time, 10% of the time to get to 8 stacks. So I'm actually not sure if you really want to get the 3-star skill, but maybe we'll go ahead and talk about that in a little bit. Just based on the amount of stacks that you're actually able to get here. Your pet also starts with 4 stacks at base level. So this would mean that realistically you only need like 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 additional stacks. I wonder if I may have just proven that this skill is useless. I'm not sure. I could be reading this incorrectly, and there could be other ways to get these innate skill buffs. Let me actually go ahead and take a look at this real quick and see if any other heroes would be better suited than pairing Thundelen with Thalia, because that's probably possible. Now, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, Magrat might actually be made to go with Thalia. Because take a look at this. You gain variable healing every time you do a normal attack, and it triggers every second. So if this normal attack damage bonus counts as a buff, which I'm pretty sure it does, this would actually be crazy. Like, absolutely crazy. So this would allow you to gain, let's see, 1 stack here, 3 stacks total here, and then maybe a 4th stack here, but let's not count that. Let's say on average you have 7 turns or 8 turns, then you'd be able to get up to 11 stacks if you pair Magrat with Thalia, where you were only getting like 5 stacks plus or minus 2 stacks or 3 stacks maybe if you paired Thundelyn with Thalia. So yeah, Magrat Thalia seems to probably be what the best pairing would be here, unless I'm reading something incorrectly. So what might actually happen for me is I might go ahead and 5-5-1-1 my Magrat. I will have to go ahead and test this. Let me know down below if you think that what I'm saying is completely inaccurate, because I haven't quite had the time to go into this, and I'm also not like super familiar with game knowledge, what is actually counted as a buff or what isn't. But for example, a hero like Indis, yeah, she has an infirm. I don't know if healing counts as a buff. I don't think it does. I don't think that this counts as a buff either, and the awakening doesn't add anything as well. So I think that the Magrat pairing is the only sensible pairing. You might be able to go with Thea actually, because you get 1 buff here, you get a well, actually no, this isn't something that actually happens. That's just a one-time thing. That's also just a passive, and that's also okay. So I guess maybe Thea just gives like 2 things with the awakening. I'm not 100% sure. I don't really know what I'm talking about here. It's just theory crafting. It's a little bit difficult to do by yourself, but yeah, I think Thalia, Magrat, probably best pairing, and then you probably pair Thundelyn with someone else as well. Just this way you're able to take full advantage of the healing factor on Thalia. So what I'm thinking right now for myself personally is I'll probably run Thalia and Magrat, maybe Magrat Thalia. I'll have to wait and see which one's best. Probably Thalia primary though. And then I'll also run Atheist Indis with my Sand Lizard. That sounds like it's going to do a ton of damage and heal a lot. Anyways, let's go ahead and pop back into the paint file so we can do like the actual comparison between these pets now. So for argument's sake, we're going to go ahead and assume that you're probably going to be getting 6 stacks. And for argument's sake as well, let's go ahead and assume that we're going to be having 2-star talents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write the numbers here for what these values would actually be as a base, and then I will come right back. This will only take a couple of seconds. So here we are with the values, and I believe that this is correct. So we are going to assume that we have, like I said, a 2-star talent, and we are getting 6 stacks, which is definitely very easily achievable. You'd only need Thundelyn to trigger once with our 30% chance over 7 or 8 turns, which is almost like a 100% chance of doing so. And yeah, so with 6 stacks, we would be getting 74.1 attack and 160 healing factor. If we compare this to other pets, you can see that this blows the barbarism of the Shadow Manticore absolutely out of the water. It's better by 100 healing factor, and it's better by a little bit in the damage factor as well. It's not quite as good as the Serraphic Faedrake in terms of damage, but of course it also has this massive healing, and you're pretty easily able, or at least I think you will be able to get more than 6 stacks if you're pairing with Magrat, and maybe someone else that I just haven't been able to think of right now. And then the Sand Lizard, which I just spent so much time 3-starring its talent, I'm almost there, is getting absolutely put to shame with its 45 healing factor for a 2-star compared to the 160 healing factor of the Serraphic Faedrake. Now, of course, it is important to remember that the Stone Aura does heal 4 of your nearby legions, so this is actually multiplied by 4, so technically this would be like 180, but hey, the Serraphic Faedrake is putting in absolute work here. So if you want to use Thalia and Thundelyn, at least if you want to use Thalia, you definitely want to have the Serraphic Faedrake for the healing. And then I think it becomes a question on whether you want to do damage or whether you want to do a lot of healing and have more sustain. If you just want damage, I think that your best bet might still be the Serraphic Faedrake, maybe, unless you're doing a rally. If you're doing a rally, your best bet 100% is going to be the Shadow Faedrake, just because of this damage bonus that you get here, and you can also buff this damage bonus very easily with a follow-up skill. And speaking of the follow-up skill, that's a little bit of an interesting one on the Serraphic Faedrake. Since the Serraphic Faedrake relies so much on crits, you can still use the follow-up skill, but your return on the follow-up skill is going to be a lot less than your return for other pets when you actually use the follow-up, super follow-up, or yes, follow-up, advanced follow-up, or intense follow-up. So yeah, best in slot on Thalia is always going to be the Serraphic Faedrake if you're using her as a DPS / support march that just gets a lot of healing and sustain. Not so much a support march, I guess just a sustain built in with Magrat. And then if you want to use it for rallies, you want to use a mage rally, like any mage rally really, you want to go with the Shadow Faedrake for this damage dealt bonus, which is absolutely critical. With good intelligence, this can go all the way up to 10%, 12%. Let me actually go ahead and check mine in game real quick. Yeah, as you can see, mine actually does 15.8% damage bonus, which is crazy. Like, this is half of the Thundelyn skill that people were freaking out over, and I have it on my pet. Anyways, let's just hop back into that paint document real quick. So I think that what I am going to be doing on my account is that I am going to be doing a 2-star Serraphic Faedrake, then finishing my 3-star Sand Lizard, and then going back to work on a 3-star Serraphic Faedrake. I'm almost done with my Sand Lizard. That'll be my second 3-star pet, and I will very easily be able to have a 3-star Serraphic Drake, probably like halfway between now and when G4 Mages release. It's very important to at least get your Serraphic Faedrake up to 2 stars if you're planning on using it, because there is this buff as you go between the different star levels, and that increases the effectiveness of your stacks. So it's not just the actual values that go up as well, but you have this compounding effect in this fact that it is the actual skill, and leveling up the skill affects the buff that buffs the skill as well. So very important if you're using a Serraphic Faedrake, rush it to 2 stars as quickly as possible. If you have any questions about these pets, my thoughts on them, do feel free to let me know down below. I want to clarify that I am not an expert in this topic, although I am passionate about it, so if you think that I am wrong, do feel free to call me out, and I will happily accept all criticism. I'm also going to put the image that I'm using right now. I'll go ahead and save it, and I'll drop it in my Discord server if you're interested. The link for that is down below. One thing that is unfortunate about this event is the price of skills. Let's go ahead and uncheck this, select Spirit and Physical. By the way, I don't know why this is listed as a physical skill. That's really concerning, but take a look at the prices. They capped on the first day, and they're no longer able to be purchased. And the 0 star is also up from 480 cost to 540 cost. Actually, I guess it's 702 cost, not 480. This one is getting pretty close to being capped out on price as well. So luckily, I was on right about after reset. I was a little bit late to logging in, so instead of buying the skill for 14,000, I ended up paying 15,453. But considering that this skill like 10 minutes later was selling for 22,000 pet currency, I'm definitely very happy with this. I also went ahead and got 2 1 stars. Unfortunately, my purchase limit was already full for 1 stars, so I wasn't able to buy any more. And I do also have the 0 star skills that I'll be able to add up to make a 1 star skill to put on the base of my pet. So it's a little bit interesting that this skill ended up in the shop. I think this is probably a conscious decision because of how good it is. And one question that I'm asking myself is, do I want this end of season skill? And I think that the answer is yes. Like, the buff is going to be like a 60% damage buff, I think, and that sounds pretty damn good. And there's also a chance that I believe, I forget what skill it was. I think, if I had to guess, I think it was the Blade Manticore skill that was swapped from being in the Amber store to the actual exchange store. So just in case that happens again, because look, like historically, the magic skills are all spirit. So just in case that happens again, I'm going to go ahead and buy this skill. That's really unnerving that there wasn't a confirmation message there, by the way. Oh my goodness, that's 4 amber gone. So now I will have this skill ready for when I start working on my Serraphic Faedrake, which is going to be my next project. Just out of curiosity, am I able to sell it? Yes, for 3,000 coins, and no thank you, sir. So yeah, I have quite a few skills ready. I have the ability to make a 3-star resonance and a 3-star follow-up, which I'm looking forward to doing. And yeah, I think that my Serraphic Faedrake will end up pretty good. I'm probably going to work on a guide for this Serraphic Faedrake, maybe in like a week or so. I'm not 100% sure. I think that I want to maybe talk with CS first. That way I'm able to get a more accurate answer on some questions that I have. And then after doing that, I can go ahead and make a more accurate video that hopefully lasts longer. Oh, why do I have all these gleam? Oh, this is from the Merit store. Right. Sorry, Fob, I'm not going to become a Cav main anytime soon. Anyways, though, this video was pretty cool. I'm excited for this new update. Once again, I really want to get into this new season. I want to spin the Wheel of Destiny 100 times. I want to spin my 100 Goblin Market vouchers. And yeah, I'm looking forward to maxing these heroes. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.